Hey, White Sox fans. My name is Brett Ballantini. Lucky enough to host Sox Populi Podcast number 181. Under normal circumstances, normal seasons, we'd have blown past like 200 already this year. We'd be doing podcasts left and right. So many exciting things to talk about. New rookies, big series wins. Well, it's 2024, so you know why we're struggling at podcast 181. And I've forgotten how to execute any of these podcasts. I don't know where to hit to record. I don't know if my mic is on. And if I keep talking a little bit longer, I may scare those of you who aren't watching this podcast into thinking that maybe for a third straight Sox Populi podcast, it's just going to be me talking to you. Voice much stronger and more robust than a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago or whenever we did these. So if I keep talking, I might just scare you into, or maybe, here's the exciting part, really on the edge here, playing chicken with you, because at some point you're just going to shut it off because you don't want to hear me. No, don't do that, because I do have one courageous guest with me for this podcast. So please take your hand off that dial. Don't snap us off, because Melissa Sage-Bollenbach, conciliary, etc., is with me here to discuss the Chicago White Sox. Melissa, thank you for having the courage and the focus to somehow bypass Birmingham Barons baseball, Chicago Bears football, life traumas and travails to do this. I'm not sure why you're doing it, but thank you for doing this, because it gets lonely just talking to myself.
I wouldn't miss it. I mean, history is history. I would not miss it.
Yes, well, it's a good seg, because what else are we going to talk about? The title of this podcast is 120 exclamation point, and what we thought would not be possible at the start of the season, and probably well into the season thought, no, come on, just the law of averages says this team is going to just sneeze its way into a few more wins than they deserve, than they should. I believe the Pythagorean record has them, run differential. That's basically, I don't even call it luck or whatever, what the probability based on just their run differential, which isn't good, by the way, how many wins they should have is 44. This team has 36. So just by fluking and tripping into ends of games, they should have won more games than 36. The Chicago White Sox right now, 36 and 120. They have now tied the most losses since 1899. Everybody says is the most losses ever. It really isn't, but really, since the time they called walks hits, since the time nobody who wasn't white could play, since the time they had whatever bean eaters or whatever crazy team names there were, when the leagues were just completely rotating. National League, I guess, was always there, but players leagues and union leagues and whatever else. I mean, come on. Before 1900, I understand why people don't want to count that. But technically, just since 1899, the most losses, White Sox have 6 chances to break 120. And here's the spoiler alert. They're going to do it. So I guess there'll be, more podcasts to come, you lucky folks. So I guess initially it's happened, Melissa, and I'm not sure if you trace exactly my timeline of no, it couldn't happen. Well, maybe, I don't know what your biorhythms have been on this season, but we're here now. We're tied with an expansion team that's sort of universally considered the laughingstock team in baseball history. The White Sox have now tied them with still 6 to go. Feelings?
So, I mean, yeah, I think, as a staff, when in the off season, when we're doing our, guessing on what the records, our predictions of what the records were going to be, I think we all, we're trying to maybe be like a little more optimistic that at least the change in leadership at the top might lead to falling into a few more wins here and there. That is the only time that I felt we wouldn't be here, because as soon as the season started and the lights shone on the field in April, it was pretty clear exactly where we were gonna end up in September. So maybe, I don't know. I felt it all along that this is where we're going to be, and look, this is where we're going to be, and there's no doubt about it. 6 games left. We're totally going to do it.
Yeah. I will say in the offseason when we did our predictions, I was steadfast. I was wrong. I first said 106. I thought that would break the record, but no, that would have just tied it. I was steadfast this was going to be a record-breaking team. Wasn't happy about it. And even in saying that, I was trying to be even-keeled about it. But even in saying that, you think, well, no, come on, this is really negative. And then you also think, you hearken to what I said 5 minutes ago, you also think, okay, this team's going to there's going to be a breakout player. Just something's going to fluke their way. I mean, of course, compared to 107 losses, which is what I picked, and certainly compared to 120, 100 would be like, okay, well, technically it would have been a one-game improvement from 2023, but okay. And none of that happened. So it's quaint for me to think back, months ago, not that there was nervous. I was boldly making this prediction because I'm a loud clown, but even in the back of your head, you think, well, okay. And then plus, everybody else is, and again, maybe factoring a little too much optimism in, but I mean, everybody's like, okay, maybe, I don't think we had many 100 losses. So, the idea that's like, oh, it's got to be a little bit better. We're just going to start. And I remember hearing, when people say like, maybe yourself included, 95 losses, like, and then my question, I think usually would be in those podcasts, like, oh, okay, why? What have we seen that's going to indicate that? And I'm sure some of the rationale is it just can't, be as bad. This weird sinking, this falling off the top of the building thing that happened in 2023, which took on a momentum of its own. It's got to stop. Some hand is going to reach out. The hand of Casey Stengel is going to reach out and catch us and then steer us in another direction so that it's only 95 losses as we turn this thing around. Well, plunging much further than any of us thought. And it makes you shake your head. I mean, this is stunning.
Yeah. I mean, it is, but it isn't. Like, so in spring training, I feel like, 'tis the nature of baseball fans. We all get optimistic and energetic, and you do say, oh, look at how this person's doing, they're going to have a breakout season or what have you. But when the calendar flipped to the season starting, it looked it looked the same, but it looked worse. I mean, to me, it was pretty obvious that we didn't do anything really to make any improvements. And then as the year has gone by, I mean, it just does seem it got worse. So yes, at the beginning of the season, I think I would have been like, no way. Just, they're going to be great, but no way. But as soon as I started seeing how all this was going to be executed, I was like, no, this is going to be really bad. And being somebody who has been watching baseball since the late 70s or whatever, and surviving that time of the 80s, you're like, it's not going to be that bad. But then once it started playing, it was like, yep, it's gonna be worse. Actually, it's gonna be a lot worse. So
yeah, they didn't mess around. I mean, they're 0-4 or so to start the season. And, within game 14, they're pretty much on a team record pace. I mean, we didn't have a grace period of a week where it's like, hey, 3-4 to start the season. Or 2023 had that great Dylan Cease game beating, I think, Houston in opening night. It's like, oh, well, hey, wow. If everything clicks, I don't know, this could be a 500 team, this could be a playoff team. We weren't. There's no such illusions this year. So when I say it's like shocking, shocking. Like if you draw the camera way back, of course we live with this. I mean, this is a second half discussion here, but we live with this forever now. This is on our shoulders forever. So bigger picture is sort of like how could this have happened? I mean, we've seen detailed articles tracing how we could have got here, but again, the macro view is like, how in the world does a team that up until maybe a decade or so ago was pretty consistently competitive turn into this? It's already been really bad in those 10 years, and now we found a new low. How are we finding new lows in 2024? Some other notable things. Again, I've found it funny that, people are throwing out, tragic numbers one, and, we've tied the Mets. Hey, listen, we knew we were going to tie the Mets like weeks ago. I mean, not to underplay the fact we are going to end up with the most losses since 1899. That's somewhat significant. But let's keep our eyes on the prize here. It's the 1916 A's, another team that was virtually an expansion team. Connie Mack sold off all his star players in that offseason, so he was basically starting from scratch again. He had a tendency to do that. So, I mean, another somewhat expansion team, a team that gutted itself in some kind of weird forced rebuild, has the worst winning percentage post 1899. That is who I've had my eye on, and the White Sox are still well within reach of that. The White Sox, to not at least tie the 1916 A's, have to go 500 the rest of the way. And again, spoiler alert, that is extremely unlikely to happen. I mean, I still think there's 2 wins in this last stretch. I'm going to still stick with that. I said they'd take 2 against the Angels at home. I'm going to stick with that. I don't know, because I'm dumb. But that would still result in a tie with these 1916 A's. Again, a team the White Sox have no business tying, especially under the guise of we were going to compete in 2024. Another thing to keep in mind, White Sox have never finished more than 56 and a half games out of first place, and that includes the majority of their history, which is playing in an 8-team American League. Therefore, just doing the math here, I'm not even a math magician, but I know that when there's 8 teams in the league, there's a lot better chance you're going to be way behind the first place team, right? The pennant winners are going to win 100, and if, boy, you don't do that, you're going to be buried. Well, 1932 team, which the White Sox have blown away as the worst team, the prior worst team until 2024 came along, finished 56 and a half out. The White Sox, I think, are within a couple of that. So there's a good chance, even though Cleveland can now just sort of like cruise to the playoffs, good chance the White Sox are going to break that as well. Another thing they keep an eye out for. And the White Sox right now, Melissa, even if you count baseball going back to the Civil War, whatever. When did organized baseball start? Like 1876, whatever it is. All teams, and these are all pre-1900 teams, but the White Sox are the 5th, right now, they are the 5th worst team ever to suit up and play. They cannot get worse than that. They can, I think, maybe fall down if they they fall down plenty in 24. They're going to fall down. But if they go, 3-3, 4-2 the rest of the way, they might actually slip down to only the 6th worst. But it's well within reach for them to stick in their 5th worst team. Of course, the Cleveland Spiders, 1899, are on top. They'll never be passed. They won, I think, 20 games. That's ludicrous. It's not that, who's going to pass that? But that said, the White Sox in all of history, and now we're talking about what? We're going on 150 years of baseball. I don't know. Again, I'm not a math magician, but a whole lot of years of baseball, and the White Sox are going to end up almost assuredly, even counting all those weird seasons where walks counted as hits, and guys could say, "Hey, throw it here," and the pitcher had to throw it there or whatever, and there was no umpire or whatever. Still the 5th worst ever. So there are definitely still some benchmarks for the White Sox to be shooting for. So again, have a few beers, guys. Celebrate the achievement tonight. There's an off day, so you can get a little crazy. That's fine. But then, hey, let's suit up on Tuesday. There's still some achievements to make this season. So let's dig deep, and let's lean into it because it's well within reach. 1916, et cetera, et cetera.
Wow. That's
yeah.
That's really
sorry.
No, when you put it in that context, I guess thinking, okay, in my lifetime, this is the worst they've ever been, and clearly, but for 150 years, they're out of all of the teams that have ever played, that is insane.
Yeah,
that's insane. That's a whole nother level.
Melissa, this is what everybody tunes in for. A history lesson. Let's just review. It's the 1899 Cleveland Spiders who did win 20 games, 20 and 134. And again, we know the Cleveland Spiders were just one of 2 teams owned by the same owner. And that owner before the season said, "Hey, all the good players on the Spiders, you're going to my other team." So again, a team utterly gutted and probably was lucky to win 20. 1890, Pittsburgh Alleghenies, 23 wins that year. Louisville Colonels in 1889, 27 wins. That's an American Association team. See, these leagues that don't exist, or they're minor leagues now, whatever, these teams are actually still worse than the White Sox. 1897 St. Louis Browns, a team that's still, I don't think they actually are the team that became the Baltimore Orioles. I think there were several Browns, 29 wins. The team that the White Sox are neck and neck with now for being the 5th worst, and technically I think at the moment they are worse than this team winning percentage-wise, but it's going to be touch and go, White Sox. 1886 Washington Nationals, 28-92, a .233 winning percentage. The White Sox actually can't fall farther than 6th because a team called the Kansas City Cowboys have a significantly better. The White Sox cannot even catch. I guess if they go 6-0, maybe they'll catch this winning percentage. The White Sox are pretty well set. If it plays out the way it's supposed to, as the 5th worst team in baseball history. Because then when you flip down to the modern era, 1901 on, again, still a very different baseball in 1901. Again, given the fact that only people who looked like us, Melissa, could play in the major leagues. Still, I mean, the A's in 1916, Boston Braves 35, and the Mets 62. Detroit Tigers, the team we just blew away, tied the reign and blew past them yesterday. They're the 6th worst team. I mean, the White Sox. This is sort of second half stuff, so we'll talk a little bit more about what this means to our fandom and how we can possibly even fix on a White Sox cap ever again in our lives. Melissa, I have a feeling I have a little bit more post-traumatic stress over it than maybe even you do, so maybe you're going to actually encourage me to feel better about things. But I want to seg before, but what you going to we're talking about it now. Let's take a break because, who knows? Maybe I'll forget because I'll be crying or cussing or, I don't know, we'll be fighting or something, Melissa. Or these explosions, this fire that you see in the background. If you're watching this on YouTube, the fire that is engulfed Sox Park, courtesy of Diabolik, is will somehow consume us. So we'll take a break. Be back in a minute. We're going to talk about Chris Getz, because who doesn't want to talk about Chris Getz? It's such an upper of a topic. I just love thinking about Chris Getz. So I'm going to think about him some more, and I'm going to force you to think a little bit about him as well. Melissa, apologies in advance. Catch us on the other side, a minute or so away, and we'll talk about more stuff that's going to make you depressed and want to turn off the podcast. Hey, White Sox fans. My name is Brett Ballantini. It is Sox Populi, Sox Pop, derived from the Latin, podcast 181. Yeah, 181. We've done 181 of these, and few have been as painful as the ones we've been doing this year, including 181, which celebrates 120 losses for the Chicago White Sox. Celebrates, again, later in this podcast, as we wind things up, we're going to talk about exactly the nature of celebrating 120 losses, but it's here. We do have to deal with it. I am joined by, she's regretting this, Ladies Night podcast host and Kannapolis Cannonballers beat writer and 2 times a week, oh my goodness, White Sox recapper. In other words, martyr, Melissa Sage-Bollenbach, thank you for deciding to muster up the courage to join me. It's more fun than talking to myself, Melissa.
Martyr or moron? I'm not sure.
Well, yes. Yeah, like a bad Sesame Street little short. M, martyr. M, moron. Let's talk. If we have to. I already said we were gonna, so we have to. I did scrawl some numbers down, so I might as well use the research I did in my little book here. It's not as impressive as your reams of notes. Oh, there it is, the notebook, and I'm sure the writing is much easier to read. I'm sure I will call some of these guys the wrong name because I can't read my own writing. That said, I want to talk about, big picture of Chris Getz being awful, but I want to drill down to the offense, because the offense going into today, and I think they're going to probably take a step back given the fact that 2 home runs in lost 120, but also 5 hits and 15 strikeouts. I'm guessing the WAR is not going to improve. -7 WAR. I believe that ties them with a Seattle team, a Tigers team. Anyway, only clearly behind, and I don't think they will catch in this last week, the worst ever offense, which I believe to be the 1977 Atlanta Braves, -10 WAR, White Sox will not catch that at -7. But the White Sox have never had a negative WAR either on the offensive side or the pitching side. The closest they ever came, actually, Melissa, you might be shocked to learn this, was just last year. The offense had a .3 WAR. Wow. And if you go back to one of those early podcasts when you said the pitching was more worrisome, I bet you wish you had that information with you before you made that vote, because some of us had a sinking feeling about the offense. And it turned out, Melissa, we were right. This is a -7 WAR offense. And I just want to drill down to some of the acquisitions and some of the players, because Chris Getz has come out saying he really should do a better job. I don't know why he thinks this is an obligation in a 120 loss season. He should stop talking. I don't care how much they beg or how much they say, "Oh man, Chris Getz isn't in the dugout to talk about stuff. I'm ticked. I'm gonna write a mean tweet." Hey man, just let him do that. You just gotta I'm not one to recommend hiding from the media and being cowardly in that way, but on this, there are not many 120 loss seasons. Just consider very strongly whether you want to sit in that dugout here this last home series and take more questions where you're just going to say more dumbass stuff like, we're not going to spend, the young players need to play better, which, again, why that needs to be said. Even a great crop of even the Tampa Bay Rays say, "Hey, young players, we'd like you to play even better next year," and they're the Tampa Bay Rays. Okay, so among acquisitions, and for guys who have a small sample size, I've just sort of extrapolated what their bad WAR numbers are. Spoiler alert, they're bad, to 162 games. Just for context, some of these guys obviously are too small a sample to go bananas about. But again, if the numbers were great, we'd say, hey, this guy, Jacob Amaya, he over 162 games with the White Sox, he would have a 5 WAR. Oh, that's wonderful. We celebrating that. Actually, let's start with him because he projects to a 1 WAR, which,
wow.
Again, I'm sorry to tell you, that's going to be the best number you're gonna hear. And that's based on him just having a positive WAR through the 10 games he's played. Benintendi, who is not on Getz's docket officially, but I'm going to guess coming from the Royals organization, he wasn't exactly like, no, I don't want that dude. I know he didn't really come from the Royals, but he was on the Royals, whatever. -1 WAR. So Getz and company with terrible acquisitions. Paul DeJong, .3. Dominic Fletcher, -0.5. Corey Julks, -2.7. And again, were we thinking that picking up Corey Julks on a whim was going to make the season? Of course not. But somebody's got to have not a -2.7 WAR. Corey Julks wasn't the guy. Corey Lee, who we've celebrated all year or much of the year, still he's a -0.1 for the season. Martin Maldonado, if you projected his terrible performance to a full season, which unbelievably the White Sox actually cut bait there, he was playing at a -4.1 WAR pace over a full season.
Wow.
Yeah. Danny Mendick, who it's like, okay, again, no harm. I'm not castigating over every one of these guys. You got to fill your roster. You got to fill your minors. Fine. Danny Mendick comes back, -1. Rafael Ortega, extremely small sample size with the White Sox, but still, that said, -2.7. Tommy Pham, tough talking Tommy, who did not like the plane and did not like the defensive positioning and just didn't like anything, didn't like the Brewers. 0. So technically, second best acquisition of the season, or tied for second with Kevin. I don't even remember all these guys' names. Kevin Pillar, who the White Sox traded to the Angels, and then he started playing well. 0. Very small sample size. 0. Not a plus. 0. Chucky Robinson, -3.5. Nick Senzel, -11.3. Again, if you projected it to that, of course, small sample size, played 12 games or whatever. But again, it's not 11.3 plus, it's negative. Braden Shoemake, -3.4. Miguel Vargas, -4.2. These are the acquisitions. None of them panned out. None of them panned out. And when you trade Paul DeJong, well, because he didn't play well at all, when you trade him for, scrap metal, then there's no plus to having acquired him in the first place. The young guys, Melissa, that, have to play better next year, again, not picking on them, and none of them have had much of a sample size, of course, but if you project them to 162, Brooks Baldwin, who has no business in the majors this year, how in the world do you do that? Bless him for it. I'm not going to, like a Romy Gonzalez, I'm not going to challenge the guy on any basis just based on the bold move he made this year. Still 0.5. And again, that's like, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Zach DeLoach, negative 4.8. Gavin Sheets, who's been around a while. This goes back to Rick Hahn and his goofy second-round choices. His true war, not projected because he's had enough games, negative 0.7. So we get angry at Andrew Vaughn, who, by the way, has a 0.4. But, Gavin Sheets, what's he done? He's actually playing first base because he can play first base. That's one thing Grady Sizemore's done. He's like, okay, I think I'm going to play the guy first base who looks like a first baseman. Well, it's not really helped the war. Lenin Sosa, even though he's gotten hot, so who knows? These last 6 games, he might change it all, but negative 1.2. So these young guys are going to play better. They're not going to play better. I mean, I understand that's what growth is, and learning the game is, and getting that first tough season, those first tough games under the belt, and then, starting fresh in the next year. So, hey, surprise me, guys, but early returns aren't I can't even think of a good player. They're not, there's no Frank Thomases in here. There's not even any, probably Ron Karkovices in here. So it's frightening to think. But again, I'll stop talking. I threw a lot of numbers at you. I'm guessing you're not real happy, and if you want to cuss and yell at me for it, that's fine. But thoughts about Chris Getz?
Well, those numbers are terrible. Like, I knew they were bad, but when you break it down like that, I mean, it makes it even seem more depressing than, just knowing they're bad. But it's like, ooh, like now I really know that they're bad. Yeah. And the thing, I guess, that upsets me and all of that, the dialogue of Getz to be like, well, the young guys, we've got people, they can play, they just need to play better. Well, you also need to surround young guys with veterans who can demonstrate what it looks like to be good, solid major league players. And when you don't do that, like, there's no role modeling there whatsoever. And then the chaos of everything else that's going on, how do you reasonably expect there to be a change in behavior when, like, just me knowing, like, I'm a therapist, like, my background is a mental health person, like, you can't expect behavior change when you're not doing anything, putting anything in place to enable the behavior to change. Yeah. So that's where I am. The disconnect for me is the numbers are bad. They're telling you look at the piece of paper, it's telling you that they're bad, and you're just like putting it out there like, well, they just got to play better. But we're not going to do anything to help them get better because we've told you we're not signing anything. We're not doing anything in the free agent market because we told you that. Yeah. And you can only sure, you can hire new people and your development and your minor leagues and all that kind of stuff, but that's not going to help the big league guys play better. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can drill down into some of the stuff that's been coming out late here in September, and probably there will be more to come because there's plenty of White Sox veterans and retired players, or more whispers around the league and guys who don't want to put their name to comments that are going to come out. Let's face it, there's going to be some sort of floodgate, I suppose. It's going to be the easiest thing in the world to pile on this team. And again, I'm not going to stand in their way. I'm not going to storm, cross the moat, storm the castle, because this team well deserves it. So we don't need to drill down into the fact that their training methods are their health training is shoddy, their instructions shoddy, their bare bones. That's been assumed. I think all along it's been assumed. We're getting confirmation of it now. We don't need to necessarily dig deep into that and be like, oh my God, let's talk about Herm Schneider, let's talk about Ken Williams or whatever, because we've sort of known all this. This is confirmation. It's good to have confirmed. But I mean, I think going forward, the thing that's a real challenge is in that list I just threw out, there's no oxygen in the room there. There's nothing that says, okay, I can get around this guy. Well, okay, maybe Brooks Baldwin. Okay, Brooks Baldwin. All right. I mean, that's not going to be Frank Thomas, and we don't. That's not fair. I'm not throwing that out there, but we just don't have those guys. Our number one, and apologies to Noah Schultz for picking on the fact that he's just not pitching like a starting pitcher. And we've had our own internal discussions about it. And there are plenty of folks who are like, come on, the White Sox aren't doing anything. Let the guy pitch, 10 pitches a game if it comes down to it, because, we're going to baby his arm or whatever. But I mean, we're talking about even our number one guy. He's not coming around anytime soon. I guess end of next year, whatever. I mean, there's nothing in trying to select or pre-select, as you were privy to, Melissa, as one of our minor league coverage people, this coming month in October on Sox Populi, we're going to sort of do a thing we haven't done before, where we're going to sort of have name all minors all-star team. We're picking, I think, 30-ish, 28, 32, I don't know, guys, who deserve recognition. It isn't necessarily equal to top prospects, because there are guys who are veterans who played at Charlotte who did really well. The Mark Paynes of the world deserve recognition even though they're not prospects. But it was darn hard to sit down and again, this isn't, Wes Kath could turn the corner next year, so let's put him on the All-Star team. This isn't this isn't a wish casting thing. This is what these guys did. And even guys who have reasonable hype, the Wilfred Verises or the Terrell Tatums of the system, didn't really have great years. There is not it was hard to fill out. In fact, it was impossible to fill out a list of 30 guys in the entire system going down to the DSL who were worthy all-stars. Like, these guys got a 800 OPS or whatever a reasonable expectation is. 750, is it that low? I always thought 800 was a fair cutoff, but 800 OPS, or incredible power numbers, or really great walk to strikeout ratio, or for the pitchers, more than one Drew Thorpe. And I know Drew Thorpe, that's asking a lot, but I mean, guys in that vein, I suppose, they just aren't there. So whatever this next wave is, so what? There's not, it's not going to help. Right. I mean, it's going to help. I mean, hopefully it'll help chisel away from 120 to 110 to 100 losses or something. I mean, you're going to move in a positive direction at some point, I presume, the law of averages, but winning 90 wins, I don't see this group that we're going to rely on moving us anywhere, moving the needle anywhere, near that type of momentum that you need to start. And then I guess apparently buying a few players. Yeah, that's going to happen.
Right.
So that's stark, that it's just the system is not bursting,
right?
By any stretch.
It's certainly healthier than it was last year, because it was dead last or second from last or whatever. So it's healthier, and what we're seeing with the Cannonballers and the Barons, as a team. So whatever's going on in that environment, they're kind of gelling together and putting the numbers together to get some wins and some playoff experience. But like you said, I mean, they're not going to come up as a collective group. It's not like 2 years from now, all the Barons are going to be playing in Chicago. So it's just, there's no help on the hitting side in terms of power, or I mean, you may have a Riku Nishidu, but one guy isn't going to be, we've seen that before. One guy isn't going to do it all, and so it is stark, and it is frustrating, and it's depressing, because we don't hear as fans about a plan that sounds that it's again going to change really change anything that we're seeing.
This season was more open than ever for Colson Montgomery to get called up. And again, not to pick on a guy who's 20 years old or whatever. I mean, I'm not picking on anybody here, but I mean, he did not force his way up. He did not even force his way into the conversation. Edgar Caro is, I think, about the closest guy you could say, all right, this guy looks like a lock. This guy looks like he's going to be a monster. And he performed consistently. He got a little hurt at the end, but he apparently healthy at the very end of the season. So this is something that's going to drag on. He's a guy who you would think could even presumably break camp in 2025, or certainly get up early. He's a guy who you can imagine making a quick and great impact on the team. There are some other guys, maybe Tim Elko, still just a first base, even if he was consistently awesome, which he wasn't. He had some incredibly hot stretches, including the way he ended the season, and then he had some real dips. But again, he's moved his way up. He's moved himself into consideration. That's great. We'd love to have 25 Tim Elkos at every level. But I mean, if that's one of the second, third, fourth guy you're talking about, there's nobody in the outfield. The infield stalled. Jacob Gonzalez ran his way to Birmingham and then stalled out. Riku Nishida, awesome. And I mean, I love the novelty of it, and I hope I hope he becomes our Ichiro. Not to like set too hard a bar for you there, Riku. But they're great. I mean, I want a few of these guys. Like Brooks Baldwin crashed the majors this year. How in the world did that happen? Where did he come from? Unbelievable. When he was assigned to start the season at Birmingham, we were like, that's pretty aggressive. He could have very easily started at Winston-Salem. He wasn't even supposed to start where he started, and he played his way into the majors early this year. For goodness sake, we need more of those guys. And that's the scary part about sitting back. And I don't expect Chris Getz and Jerry Reinsdorf to come out this year and say, "Oh, you know what? We're going to buy the league. Juan Soto's coming. We're going to trade for Shohei. We're going to go banana. We're going to raise our budget to $1 billion." No, of course not. But
we don't have a cornerstone of our franchise because I feel like in order for these young guys I feel like, this broken record here, but these young guys coming up and like, who are they looking to? Andrew Vaughn with his .4 WAR. Mm-hmm. Like there's no cornerstone. And how do you build without a cornerstone? Mm-hmm. How do you improve without a cornerstone? How do you get as excited as a fan without a cornerstone? And so Luis and Garrett, and likely they're probably gone after this. Mm-hmm. So there's literally nobody.
Yeah, the guys we consider, you think, okay, Andrew Vaughn, by any stretch, if this was even a normally competitive, as if I can still say that phrase about the White Sox, the normally competitive White Sox team, he's probably not even getting tendered after this season. But now you have to look at him as a cornerstone. He does stay healthy. I guess he's positive WAR, sort of. I mean, Gavin Sheets isn't even positive, and yet it's like, well, Gavin Sheets comes to play. Well, okay. Well, then guess what? He's on the 2025 team. These guys who probably don't really have any business. Well, what other proof do you need they have no business in the major leagues than we've lost 120 games this year? Some demon didn't come in and start 100 games and blow them all for us. No, this is the White Sox team that managed to lose it. It's great that Luis Robert is going to end up with, a 1.5 WAR with this horrible season he's had, which I imagine a good amount of that is just his defense alone. But that's like that's your superstar. A guy who's not even a major league starter based on this season is your. I guess that's how you get 120 losses. I shouldn't act like it's surprising. Of course, the numbers are going to be horrible because this is a horrible team. You're going to have guys who are 0-10 and 2-15 and have ERAs breaking the ceiling. As we transition into maybe what will be our final topic of the podcast, Melissa, the seg will be not that we won't have all off season, as if I'm going to do any of these. What am I doing? Why am I even still doing this, Melissa? Our off season podcast, of course, will point toward 2025. What else do you have to do? But here's the thing. Where is the sunrise in 2025? I mean, this is a very early take, but knowing now that, I won't say nothing. Some guy's going to come. There's going to be an Eric Fetty or whatever. There will be something, I suppose, right? I guess maybe, that's a hunt, maybe, but okay. Presuming that even that, we are in, I can't even say the words because it seems like it can't possibly happen because no team or even league would let this happen. But 2025, I laughed when Bob Nightingale tweeted today that it's the first 120 loss season in White Sox history, as if all teams have like a count of their 120 loss seasons. But the scary thing is, a year from now, he might actually be more able to legitimately tweet. It's their second 120 loss season, because I'm just not really sure how we're going to steer clear of that next year.
I 100% agree. And so I will say that, and covering, I mean, I feel like on site, I am one of the ones that has been watching the like most baseball, because I have my 2 recaps.
Yes, forward all the medical bills to me. Vox will take care of them. But yes, go ahead.
And so just the optics, I feel like they have been in more games. So it had looked, anyway, to my eyes, like they had slightly improved. And so over the last 30 days, so I pulled the stats.
Notebook.
I did. I'm going to my notebook. So while their 4.77 staff ERA is it's not great.
You'll take it.
It's not the worst. It's the 28th. But when you pull out the last 30 days, we jumped 6 spots to 22.
All right.
Now, to me, that's a pretty big jump. If you go from 28 to 22, that's not like 28 to 27. Okay. So the pitching has seemed better. Bullpen, even specifically, has seemed better. And my little stats would say, yeah, Melissa, you're not on crack. They are a little bit better. Hitting is similar. Okay. Dead last, 220 for the year. That's terrible. But when you pull out the 30, they jump to 24th. Okay. So they have been in more games, but they're still not winning them.
Yeah.
So in order to actually, so you're more competitive. You've got a new manager who's maybe taking a different approach, doing some different strategies, setting up the game plan a little bit differently. It's making you more competitive. But what is it that's going to make you actually better? And as we've been talking, there really doesn't seem to be anything that's actually going to make them better. So while they may play a little bit brand of better baseball in 2025, I still see them losing a massive amount of games.
Yeah.
Because they're not improving their offense in any significant way. They're hoping that they're using the hope and prayer method of, we're hoping that our young guys are going to play better, and we're hoping that our pitching is, going to pitch better. And while you may get, Crochet's gone, you may get a Drew Thorpe or a Jonathan Cannon who does step in and they kind of take that Garrett Crochet role. But if you still only got one guy doing it, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change what has happened. And it's still going to be a really shitty brand of baseball.
Yeah. The pitching staff, Hamster had this in the Southside Sox recap, and I think it's astute enough. The pitching rotation, unbelievably or not, I mean, it's been solid all year. And of course, Eric Fetty's gone. Garrett Crochet may be gone. So, I mean, obviously going to take some hits, but the reinforcements that have come up, while maybe not overwhelming, certainly among, she listed like 7 or 8 names, but I mean, there are enough arms, and it's not just barely scraping by. We're talking about 6, 7, 8 arms, certainly if you include Crochet, guys who have put up legitimate starts, predicated on Thorpe coming back healthy, predicated on, Kai Busch sort of sorting things out a little bit. I mean, everybody's still got to sort things out. I mean, you see what Sean Burke did today, and of course a losing effort because the White Sox don't hit. But this is a guy who's still coming off of surgery. He didn't even have a lot of ramp up in the minors, and he's throwing 80. Well, he was pushing, I think, 90 pitches today, and very strong and relatively, I guess, efficient effort for a guy who wasn't actually terribly good. I mean, he was getting hit. He was striking guys out, but he was getting hit pretty good at Charlotte. He's come up and put together 2 really amazing games. And these don't seem like mirages. And if your list is 5, 6, 7, 8 guys, your list is 8 guys. Okay, maybe half are mirages. Okay, then you got 4 pretty solid starters. I think there's one thing we can actually say unbelievably, because it's been such a problem for it seems like so long, even back when the Sox were competitive, so-called competitive, that brief window, that crack in the door when they were competitive, there are actually arms. And that doesn't even get now into the Noah Schultz's, when he does finally pitch the 5 innings and makes, if they even allow him to pitch in Charlotte, he's been so carefully managed. I don't even think they're going to let him pitch in Charlotte because, hitters park. And so I guess that leads to, while we've got one of maybe these 3 main aspects or 4 main aspects of the team sorted out, where the rotation, okay, we're not taking it to the bank, but you could say promising. I don't think you're crazy to say promising. The hitting, aside from the very end of the season in Charlotte, where they were not going to cover off the ball, and some of those guys were the veterans, we're not talking about Wilmer Defoe here, or, Zach DeLoach or Mark Payton. We're not necessarily talking about those guys. Okay, maybe DeLoach. But I mean, they're in Charlotte in a hitter's park, and they were not tearing the cover off the ball. So we're not talking about like 8 guys or 5 guys with 800 OPSs who are just like itching to get up. They just find, like Colas did not get demoted for the 800th time this year and just, OPS 1,000 at Charlotte. Like, okay, guys, when am I coming back up? Nobody's forcing their way up. Even Brooks Baldwin was sort of a rush up. I mean, he held his own well enough. He's not drowning at the major league level, but he played a week in Charlotte and he killed it. He played a week in Charlotte. So, I mean, that was even like, a bum rush in the major leagues. There's a right opening or whatever. Beyond Caro, I don't think there's a reliable bat. And if we're just going to have another season where it's like, wow, will the White Sox offense have a positive WAR collectively, or will they not? And that's going to be enough to anchor, the team. Anchor by pulling them down underwater. I mean, so what? Yeah, I mean, what's the best case with Grady enthusiasm, pitching that maybe doesn't miss a beat, bullpen that maybe tweaks a little better, defense because like Dominic Fletcher is out there or something is maybe a tweaked touch better.
But if you can't
so that's
run.
Well, yeah. So then we're a 100-loss team. I mean, and that would be an amazing turnaround if you're turning around 2025 wins. But I mean, we're still talking about, the idea that we would be like, oh my God, it's one of the best turnarounds in Major League history. Oh, but we lost 99 games. That's going to be weird. But I mean, at least that would be such a dramatic move in the right direction that, I think we'd be pleased as punch if the White Sox lost 100 games in 2025. And
yep,
I don't bet, but I don't think anybody would be very wise to invest in that notion. All right, broader speaking, because we have plenty of time to talk about 2025, and this is all so depressing anyway. So let me depress you further, Melissa, or maybe not, because you're just Mrs. Sunshine there. What has this season, and we've talked about this, I'm sorry if there's any repetitive topics here, friends, listeners, viewers, readers, just people randomly listening in the background to somebody put their podcast up just a little too loudly. But this is stuff we got to talk about. This is a 120-loss season. You got to keep coming back to this. And I mean, it's something that's really stuck and resonated with me. And now that some of this stuff has become an official, or maybe it's just the sheer fatigue of tracking how bad this team has been day after day after day for 140 games now. This has taken a real hit on what my fandom is and who I think of myself as a baseball fan is. I know there are others. Malachi Hayes was one who was very adamant about like, they can't take my Sox fandom away from me type of thing. Jerry, I don't care. I'm a Sox fan first. And I know that's how, again, all respect to Sean there, but I mean, that's how Cubs fans rationalize their fandom. Al Yellen at Bleed Cubby Blue over at Vox, rationalize their fandom of, well, I'm a fan first and I don't care if I have insurrectionist, hideous fascist ownership. I can somehow float around that. Not to get political, but I also don't care. But I mean, okay, Reinsdorf is he's getting about this close as ugly. He'll never be uglier than Cubs ownership, but man, is he getting close. And that takes a hit. That I take a hit from this season and how I choose to go forward as a fan. How is it placing you as a fan? Nearly, not quite with all the youthful good looks, but I mean, nearly as long as I have been. And, of course, you've seen the wars, you have the scars, you have the 80s, you have the 90s, you have the O's, you have the teens, and now you have the 20s to to feel, I mean, these are scars. Where are you at with it? Is there a point where you can get too scarred, or do you get scarred at all? It's just like, it's sports, Brett. What's your problem?
So there was a tongue-in-cheek moment with me and Sage within the last week or so with kind of some of this, because he's dyslexic. So when that big article came out, I sat down and I read it to him. And so we were just talking about stuff. He says to me, he's like, making me a White Sox fan, Mom, was child abuse. I was like, oh, like, really, buddy?
There's your promotional giveaway, White Sox. These ideas are free. You can steal them.
Right. And so, yeah, of course, we're laughing about it, but there is some seriousness to that. And like, it's heartbreaking, I think, what we've gone through these last couple of years as a fan, and like all the things that we've assumed that were happening. And then, of course, lately seeing in print that there actually are happening. It to me, it's a mix of sad and angry. Like I'm angry because there's really nothing we as fans can do about any of it other than take our fandom away and say, I'm just not doing it anymore. Because there's nothing we can do to change what's happening actually in the organization itself. And then I'm just very sad because something that we've all put in so much time and energy and love, and that it's come to this, and that it's a shambles. And so for me, it's like sorting through that. Like, what do I do with the anger? What do I do with the sadness? Because there has been joy in the past. And you can't ever take that away. So that experience is what it is. But going forward, is there going to be, is it worth my continued investment to keep sticking around during all of this complete chaos to be here again when the joy returns? Because we know someday it will. So I guess that part kind of sticks with me, but how long in the meantime am I willing to continue to invest the time and energy? And I mean, here in the site, that answer to me is very clear. Like, I'm not going anywhere because I love our team that we have and the camaraderie, and just, we all have the same values and ways to look at things, even though we have diverse opinions about things. I just love our team here. So that I'm not going anywhere there. I will be here to continue to recap these awful things, but like going to games and like watching the games when I'm not on the clock, to be in charge of actually doing something. But I will. I know I will.
Yeah.
Damn it. There's my first cuss. I know I will. I just will. And I don't know. So.
No, you squeaked out a shitty earlier. So no, you already broke the tape. Sorry. That's Melissa. FCC. That's Melissa. It's not me. I'm clean. Always clean. I mean, I think I said it before we reached 120 losses. I would be done if not for this team of people covering the team. I would be done. My fandom has hit doldrums in the past, even though I've never not been a White Sox fan. When they were terrible later 80s, and then at the same time, history repeats. At the same time, Reinsdorf starts extorting Illinois for a new park. Good timing, because Comiskey cannot possibly be preserved. No, I mean, at that point I was like, forget it, go. I don't have to be this. Again, does that mean I would rush to be another fan? Am I going to become a Brewers fan or a Cardinals fan or a Red Sox fan or a Yankees fan? Of course I'm not going to do that. Who cares? That's going to take effort I don't have in me. And plus, who wants to hang with all those? Come on. I don't want to hang with any of those people. But no, I absolutely would. And that's before we even hit 120 losses. Now, I mean, even now, it's like, man, there are days I just think, well, I don't know. There's all these pluses here. I mean, I appreciate how adamant you are. I'm hoping you're not going to file any sort of like labor, like abuse claims, because clearly you qualify, and everybody working for our two sites does have a claim, because this is, we can laugh about it. Cubs fans are complaining, for God's sake. You do have a winning record, guys. Your fan abuse. No, this truly is everything we have endured. It is This is the weirdest Mad Lib ever. We've got guns going off in parks. We've got abusers re-signed. We've got awful performance on the field. We've got terrible messaging to fans. I mean, I'm forgetting like 58 things in just trying to make this list. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and still hire. Yeah, go ahead with the hire. It's beyond comprehension. You could have made it. You could have made that. And frankly, I think I had the stuffing kicked out of me just a year ago. And to think, I would have easily walked away a year ago. It's a year later, 120 plus losses, more ugliness, of course. The abuser alone. But I mean, maybe for a typical White Sox year in this century, this has been maybe even better than average somehow in terms of like all the terribleness of what goes around the team. But I don't know. We're getting these stories here at the end of the season, so. Even though it sort of doesn't count because we're talking about like 2007 and then 2016 and these weird guys used to play there, and then Kenyon Middleton will come up again. So maybe it's sort of not fair that it piles all into 2024. But I mean, it's not a good feeling, and I can say, I mean, I look my fandom just dead-eyed in the face like on a daily basis, and part of that is the fatigue of this death march, but part of it is also, what am I doing? I mean, I've walked away from being much of an NFL fan. I just who cares? I'm not into it. The Blackhawks. I mean, you could celebrate these unbelievable championships, but then, there's among a number of things, a very ugly stain that does affect your fandom. It probably doesn't affect your joy in the Stanley Cup. It doesn't even affect my joy in being able to be lucky enough to cover a team that won a Stanley Cup for the first time in 49, 48, whatever years it was. Because I've been away from hockey now. I don't even remember the amount of years, 58, 68, 700. I don't know what it was. But, so you try to just hold on to the good memories and somehow conveniently ignore the bad. It's hard to do. Bulls, same ownership, Bulls, that's soured for me too. I mean, all of these teams are being ripped away. And I mean, you could say that's like old man grumpiness shouting at clouds, screaming out the heavens. But, and I'm not saying there's none of that, but I mean, like a real team, a team that's actually trying. The team. This is why I thought it was so significant. Made such a stupid big deal about the fact this is now a losing franchise, because the White Sox were not that. And you could say, what's the difference between the White Sox and the Cubs? They never win, and blah blah. Well, the Cubs were a team more of extremes. They had this 100 loss in my lifetime, in our lifetime at least. They had these 100 loss. They're just out of it, like in April, whatever. The White Sox were very rarely that. And you can say, okay, well, then you're just kidding yourself for deeper into the season. Well, what's the point of being a fan if you're not kidding yourself into like at least August, and then, okay, your team collapses and, you cry a couple tears, and then you say, okay, well, spring training. The idea that a younger fan, and my heart goes out to Sage and even the people on our staff who are fans, mostly basically of this century, who don't even have anything crisp from 2005, because I would have to tell them, what are you doing here? How in the world could you? I don't care how forceful a baseball fan your dad was or your grandma was. How in the world have you picked this up with the only experience you've had is just
awful?
Just getting spit in your face. You can call it rain, but you're getting spit right in your face. I mean, performance. We can go all uppity about that and say, oh man, they're personally offending me because they lost 90 games. Oh, okay, lighten up, chill out. Nobody wants to lose. But then all the other stuff, in addition to being a horrible team, horribly run, all the extra stuff that makes you not feel clean to be. I feel like I'm a Cubs fan. Again, apologies to the Sage-Bollenbach household, but I feel like I'm a Cubs fan, and that's why I'm not a Cubs fan. And so, yeah, okay, I'm struggling. I'm as my White Sox therapist now, Melissa. We'll have to do these. Well, we might be doing these nightly anyway, because there's going to be a new mark to break for 6 more.
Right? Yeah,
six more nights.
But we've got plenty of more history that we can acquire over these next 6 games.
So you feel yourself, in spite of my like 10,000 mile stare about it, you're feeling a little bit like more optimistic? I know you've got the sort of dynamic where you've got at least one child very smartly ambivalent, Lester, but the other being, okay, child, you got to deal with those child abuse accusations. So I mean, there is that, and I mean that's a big part of where you would want to at least force that smile onto your face. So I guess you're seeing a little bit more, I don't want to say sunshine, but just something. I mean, I think you even said it's bound to turn around.
Well, yeah.
I'm not going to call you on that, but I mean, you're right.
Okay, like my dad's 84. I love my dad. And my dad ran a successful business for many years. But at 84, he doesn't need to be in charge of anything. So at 88, Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't need to be in charge of anything. And so while I hate to like you don't wish anybody's demise. You just don't. Like, that's just terrible. But he is 88. And like, we do know people don't live forever. And so, but people also live to be like 100. So that could be like 12 years. Like, am I willing to like slug through this for like the next 10 years? But yeah, I am, because like my kid will want to go to, he like really wanted to go to one more game this year. And I was like, buddy, I can't do it. Like, I cannot go to one more in-person game. Like, I know you want to go, but like, let's put that money to Sox Fest. And that's a whole other thing. Like, like, let's put that money towards Sox Fest, and we can like upgrade to like the next, level, so that we don't have to stand in line to get like.
You can buy a Miguel Vargas autograph. Oh yeah. Awesome. All right. Start the pool.
So I was like, we could just put our money there. But he's like, do you think they're really going to have a Sox Fest? Jerry's not. He's going to cancel it. He's too, scared of everybody. And I'm like, well, but then you have the whole like celebrating the 2005 World Series. It's the 20 year. Like, they're going to try to cash in on that and like make us all forget about everything else because we have 2005. So I really do think they're going to have it. So yes, Brett, I am going to be here. I will. Yeah. I can't put it in the back door. I can't put it in the rearview mirror.
Well, in case, to all of you listening, watching, reading, in case I just disappear, Melissa will be here. So Sox Populi, et cetera, will always be around because of that. It's tough with Jerry, because there's not even the illusion of, hey, we made a mistake. Hey, we want to do better. Hey, we're taking corrective measures. Because you know what? If there was that, I know that can be weak too. I mean, every year you come out and say, "Oh man, we're so angry at ourselves. Oh, I can't believe we let that happen." I'm the maddest fan out there. I mean, at some point that gets old, right? It becomes like sort of an Ozzie Guillen loop, type of thing, where it's like, okay, you cry wolf a few more times. But then, at least when you're like screaming about Jerry Reinsdorf and now like, he should be gone and I can't wait till he's gone, whatever. You'd like actually sort of maybe feel like a little bad about it, because you're like, oh wait, I'm like turning on my own, like, and then you think, oh my God, he brought these champions. You would actually, I know there are people who are laughing at me right now saying, oh yeah, I won't ever feel bad about wanting to stab that guy in the neck. Oh please, come on, there's a way to do this. And if you were actually, if you really were earnest, even in your failures, and I know people don't do that. I know we're not in that world anymore, but I mean, honest, forget earnest, honest about your failures, you're going to get some goodwill. It's going to change what your epitaph is. And I don't mean literal epitaph, although it counts there too. Just your epitaph as a steward of these, community properties, so-called. And the idea that nobody does that, everyone's scared to do it, everybody's passing the buck, nobody's talking, everybody's pointing, everybody's sniffing. Oh, well, now there's a new international director. Well, oh my God, the change that's going to come.
From the Mets.
Ooh. 2 years ago, our guy like was the international whatever scout of the year. So okay. So yeah, I mean, no honesty, no transparency, no connection. I mean, the fact that people are falling over themselves, tickled and delightful, and positive national attention's come from the fact that for 3 days the White Sox like social media account's been like wry about losses, like that's so novel. Oh, the only good employee on the team. Oh my God, is our bar is on the ground. But all right, you got to start somewhere, I suppose. Okay.
Got to make fun of ourselves. And
Oh my God.
But I wonder if anybody even knows like that person's doing that.
I'm telling you right now, if Reinsdorf was okay with letting Benetti go because he like didn't like all the stats and the jokes, that guy, that person working is not working there next year. I'm sure that person doesn't care and already knows his or her job has been, terminated for next year, because they're like cutting back and they're not going to, tweet anymore. They're going to just move permanently to blue sky. But, if Reinsdorf was that uptight about a beloved broadcaster, I'm going to guess the social media person is whatever, okay. And then all the people who allowed it to happen are, they're going to just shut down the website. Merkin wrote about Moncada not being sure about what his future was. Get him out of here. My God. It'll be a bloodbath based on, at least by the Benetti standard. Good Lord. Well, anyhow, yeah, it's been okay. It's been fun having the black soul of the White Sox invade us, but thank you for at least shouldering that with me, Melissa. It doesn't really resonate too much with the actual players in the system, but it is nice that Kannapolis, the team that you were covering there at the end of the season, and certainly Birmingham with Christina Erdo is covering right now, including a recap I've got to get to once we finish up, a win for the Birmingham Barons as they try to pursue a championship. I mean, listen, better to have championships, better to win playoff games than not. Even though somehow, how in the world does the team that backs its way into the playoffs get home field advantage in both of their playoff series? They're going back to Birmingham. I don't think they're going back to wherever. Yes, I mean, man, boy, that's real incentive to win that first half. And they only won it because the Smokies had one less game. They totally backed into it, and now they get to have all these home games. Hey, we need it. We're owed. The baseball gods are giving us a break.
Yes, we will take wins where we can get them, even ones that don't really count for much of anything. We will take them.
Salute to Jonathan Nelson down there in Birmingham. Sergio Santos, our manager and the closer in all of our hearts, deliver us. You are our only hope, Birmingham Barons. Please, Riku, keep being the annoying super nat that you are. And let's get one trophy this year. We couldn't even get that stupid cross-down fake one. So let's just get one this year. And I don't know, maybe we can feel good about 2025. Probably not.
No, but
boy, the lost predictions next year. Going to be exciting.
That'll be a fun podcast. That'll be, if anybody has less than 1,000, 1,000. Listen, 1,000 losses, 100 losses. Yeah, I can't even imagine. I
think Ryan will choose 1,000 losses, but here's the thing: you can say you look forward to the podcast, but let's be honest, this is going to be me and you. I don't know who. I'm just going to make up names from like an old baseball video game. I'm just going to make up names of other people predicting because I don't know. I don't know if we'll have 20 next year, but we'll see. Who knows? Maybe Soxivus or the off season or Sox Fest will bring everybody back.
Reared up. Yeah, I'm going to try to coordinate a meetup. Di and I are already meeting up for sure, so I'll try to coordinate. Maybe we. All
right, okay. See, she's just volunteered. Melissa and Di both wall to wall Sox Fest coverage. Sage will be in there too. All the Q&As that they won't have. You'll hear all the resonant booing when all of them are canceled because Chris Getz got the flu and Jerry Reinsdorf, the cigar went down the wrong way. Whatever. Yeah, Tony La Russa just wandering. Now he's not getting on stage. He's just wandering. Just reporting about how to play the right way, how to fan the right way, how to Sox Fest the right way. Oh, good times. But that's next year. We still have 6 games and a miserable 2024 to live through, and then all the other stuff. All the other signings that won't be done. And, man, am I building enthusiasm for Sox Populi, our site on the Fans First Sports Network. Well, Melissa, you're doing more work than me on it, so thank you for doing that. And I don't know, I guess talk to you tomorrow. A therapy session, I don't know, like 7 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah,
good.
No game, so.
Please, sorry, you're stuck. And this is going to be, I won't say out and out gratis, but yeah, we're gonna start. That'll be the rate to begin, and we'll just see. We'll build some kind of sliding scale. The boss sliding scale. Sorry, hate to pull rank, but yeah. Okay, so yeah, all right. Talk to you tomorrow then.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks everybody for watching. Listen, I don't know why you're doing it. God bless you for doing it, but come on back tomorrow tomorrow or the next day. Listen in on the next therapy session as we try to make sense of the 2024 Chicago White Sox. And we know the answer. We will not be able to make sense of the 2024 White Sox, but we'll have fun trying, I suppose, or something that we'll at least call fun. We'll be lying. But anyhow, thank you, Melissa Sage-Bollenbach, for joining me. Now get to whatever recap or other thing you got to be writing, and we'll get to more stuff. We got 6 more games of coverage. Check it out on Sox Populi, and we'll be back with more podcasts as the White Sox turn the page and lose more and break records. We could have one every day next week. Probably not, but I'll do what I can. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, everybody listening, reading, all that stuff. We'll keep putting the stuff out as long as you're there to listen and theoretically enjoy.